Hello and welcome back to Rev Endurance Sports. And today we're going to do another segment in a day in the life of a bike shop owner. I think it's a new series. I think it'll be fun to flesh this series out over time and see what ends up on that playlist. By the way, I have over 1,000 videos on this channel. I've been terrible about putting them in playlists, but most things are in a playlist as of probably 2 years ago anyway. Okay, so what's coming up in the channel later or in another video will be an unboxing on the 239, MX 239 and the 30G from Lake Cycling. And both of those shoes are for a young lady who wants to do some gravel racing and has had some foot pains. Okay, so let's get on to the topic of today. Gentleman gave me a call this morning, says he has a Holland, which, if you don't know, is generally a custom-made bike in titanium. They do some really cool stuff in an exogrid, in other words, titanium with cut-out portions of the tube, and then that is filled in with carbon fiber. Really beautiful looking machinery, and just a nice combination of metal and carbon fiber being used together. So he has a Holland, not an exogrid, and it hasn't been ridden for a while, and he wants to get it back on the road. And I'm thinking, okay, cool, Holland. Usually those bikes are keepers, and he likes the frame, he likes the bike, and so let's take a look at it. Well, he brings the bike in, and right from the very beginning, I can see a lot of corrosion on it. There's tri-bars on it. And on the phone, he had mentioned he's going to need a new handlebar. And I didn't know why he meant that, but now I understood that because his current setup is triathlon setup. When he did triathlons a long time ago, he's going to need a regular drop bar. And then, of course, you need the shifters for that. But one of the biggest sticking points for me when I saw the bike was that it was on a 650 format. So if you're not aware what a 650 wheel looks like, it's much, much smaller than a standard 700 size wheel. So the gentleman's about 5'6", and late 80s, early 90s, this was a thing. Or maybe it was in the 90s, it was a thing that for triathlons, you would put people, even 6-footers, you would put them on a 650 wheel format. But today, that's very hard to find. Tires, tubes, quality tires, tubes, or wheels. And that was one of the first things that was going to cause some issues in this restoration. The wheels were a Bontrager race light, so nothing fancy, but all the spokes were corroded, all the nipples were corroded. And when I gave the wheel a spin, I could see that they were out of true, so there was just no way I was going to true that wheel without breaking a spoke, breaking a nipple, and then having to replace that. So that was going to be a big expense, even just trying to true the wheels. So I said, look, that right there is several $100s, because we just need new wheels. These are really, really bad shape. All right, but in my opinion, that format was throwing good money after bad. So I said to him, look, these rim brakes, they're also corroded. Just a lot of things needed to get replaced. Now, initially on the phone, he was aware of that, and I made it abundantly clear that if this bike has a lot of corrosion, it's got to go. We're not going to spend any time cleaning these items. We're just going to they got to go. And it was in really, really, really bad shape. So, because it was a rim brake bike, you're going to have to get shifters for it. And then you're going to have to get, you know, derailleurs. They were corroded as well. I just felt so bad for this gentleman. Well, I had no idea how old this gentleman was. He had wonderful head of hair. And in the process of the conversation, I just asked him, I said, well, how old are you and how much do you want to spend on this bike? How much riding do you think you're going to do? When he tells me he was 83 years old, I was literally floored. He was just so well kept. And I turned to his wife, who was there at the same time, and I said, what are you feeding this gentleman? It's Fountain of Youth, because he looked great. So I then said, look, I understand that you came here for a restoration type project, but the amount of money we have to put into this bike, for example, buying new shifters, why would we buy new shifters for this bike? Let's buy new shifters for a new bike. Why would we buy new wheels for this bike? I mean, since we have to buy new wheels anyway, let's buy new wheels for a different bike, a different frame, right? And of course, I'm thinking Richie Montebello for this gentleman. He doesn't need a short head tube, because that's the thing too. Even on the bike he was riding, the head tube was so short because it was a triathlon bike. And the seat tube angle was going to be steeper. The head tube was going to be shorter. By the way, Russ from Pathless Pedal just did a video on bike sizing. Do you go smaller or larger if you're in between the sizes? So I need to do a reaction video on that, because it's a conversation I have often with customers here in the store, and a conversation I had with another gentleman that I want to get a podcast started, but we just haven't had the opportunity to do it. Anyway, short head tube, steep seat tube angle, 83 years old, not the right frame for him. It was a Holland titanium frame, custom made for him. But we just, in my opinion, my professional opinion, it was not the right place to put any money into it. So the good news is that he came to me as a referral. And when someone comes to you as a referral, there's a little bit of credibility already established. Hey, I sent so-and-so to you. Or I'm sending so-and-so to this person because I used him, I worked with him before. And what was interesting is that I hadn't connected all the dots until, I mean, he was leaving. And when he told me who referred him, I said, oh, well, good thing I'm recommending a Richie Montebello to you, because the person who referred you to me had a Richie titanium breakaway. And you might, if you watch this channel on a regular basis, I built up a Richie breakaway titanium bike for someone who shipped it, the bike was shipped to me, and I built it for his niece. So now my recommendation kind of made a lot more sense to him, that, oh, okay, the person who referred me to come to you had a Richie, and you're recommending a Richie, so okay, all of this is starting to line up. So here's what I'm thinking that would do this customer the best possible. He didn't want an e-bike, by the way. When I showed him that, the majority of the shifting has gone electronic, and it was funny, his wife too was like, but not an e-bike, right? And he said, no, I don't want an e-bike. So good for him. He's 83. He does not want an e-bike. I sell e-bikes, by the way. So I said, okay, Richie Montebello, that'll give you a taller head tube, right? Give you a sloping top tube, because he doesn't have one on that titanium tri-bike. So we'll give you the taller head tube. We'll put you on a disc brake format and we'll get you some nice fatter tires to ride on. Fatter is relative. Could be 30, could be, anything over 22. He had these tires on, they were 21 and 22. So anything more than 23 is going to give him a better ride than, and he may not remember what it felt like way back when, but as you get older, these cracks on the road seem to hurt a little bit more. All right, so bigger tires, disc brake technology for him. We could go mechanical, but why not go with a lower end, maybe a SRAM group or something like that, or a DI2 group, but just a lower end, save him some money, and he'd be a lot happier. He would be a lot happier. It'd be a much better bike for him than trying to trying to restore his titanium triathlon bike from, he couldn't remember how long he's had it. He gave me some math. He thinks it's about 28 years old, that bike. So we're at a point where he's going to go back. He's going to reassess what's going on. He says, what can you do for me? Because you've been so frank and so honest. I don't want to go to a big box store. And I said, the pricing is the pricing. I'm not going to discount something that is a premium brand like Ritchie and componentry that has very little margin in it in the first place. Most of my money, and anyone will tell you, most of the money that a bike shop makes is in the labor, not so much in the parts, reselling of the parts and frames and wheels. So he's going to go back to the drawing board, as they say. He's going to talk it over with his wife. His wife seems very amenable to yes, if you need a new bike, then that's the way to go, because I understand everything you've explained to my husband about this bike and why it just doesn't make financial sense. It's just not only is it not financial sense, but I've mentioned before, geometry-wise, this is not the right bike for this customer, right? So I'd like to hear your thoughts. I don't see going from titanium to a steel bike as a downgrade, especially he's not worried about something being lightweight. If you can now get 36 tire clearance in there, I mean, this is the perfect bike, in my opinion, for this gentleman. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you're thinking. Stay tuned for the videos that are coming up. As I mentioned, an unboxing video on these two lake cycling shoes. Then I've also got some other things in the works. I've got a reaction video to my own video about how to brake effectively, and especially in a panic situation. And anyone who has disagreed with me is wrong. I just need to tell you that. If you disagreed with me, you're wrong, but I'll tell you why you're wrong. And then I've also got a reaction video to Russ from Pathless Pedaled on his geometry or his bike sizing advice. Okay, that is all for now. That is all for today. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you up the road.